Well, what is this book about? The Secrets of the Sphinx. Are you excited about this new book or what?
Oh my gosh, I'm super excited. Well,
So, how did
after
this second book come out? I know, and if you notice, I have your book right here. Oh, it went somewhere. It was
one of
right
the
there.
beings took it.
I might have to redo this video.
No, you can leave it in as bloopers.
I know. So that's right. It's in the bedroom. So I was taking
Oh,
notes from it. So
oh.
what made you come up with the second book? What's going on with the second one?
So I just wanted to pick up where we left off with Jen after the Hypnotist Journey to Atlantis. And I just started out with her and I let her higher self take us to wherever they wanted us to take us. So basically, I never write these books. I mean, it was written for me. And I thought we would start somewhere totally different. In fact, I had no idea it was going to end up being about the Sphinx at all.
Oh,
We so
nice.
we started out, her higher self took us to her past life in the 70s, and we got a much more in-depth look into that lifetime. But what was interesting about that lifetime is I thought that she just uncovered information with this person named Julie back in the 70s about Atlantis and Lemuria, that actually she uncovered so much more that they had recovered through those were early hypnosis sessions, and they uncovered so much information, but
What?
it never went, they didn't record it in anything. They just uncovered it.
They just
And
took notes and just listened to it and just
they
said, "Oh,
didn't even
that's
take
interesting."
notes. They would get together once a week after she was done working. I know.
Where's your
They would,
notepad at?
I know. But, it all worked out. It had to come out. Now, it wasn't the right time. Everything about that life just wasn't the right time. It was too early for this information to come out in the 70s. But she uncovered all this information about the Sphinx, about Mars, about underground tunnels, and all different kinds of things. And we started getting this information again. This is information that she found with this person named Julie. And she would go after work, she would go to Julie's house and they would just get all this information. It was really rudimentary. Back in that day,
Ah,
she would stare at a candle to get this
uh-huh.
information. That was how Julie hypnotized her back then.
Gotcha.
And she would just get tons of information. They released that information to her really quickly in that lifetime. And that's why it's slower in her current lifetime as Jen, just because she felt maybe they released it too quickly in that lifetime. But because of this, we were able to get so much information. And we picked up where she left off with Julie. And it was
Gotcha.
it was fascinating because I had no idea how much stuff she had uncovered in that lifetime. And then we went through her life and we got a really detailed view of what that life was like for her. And then she went during that lifetime, she tried to share this information with some of her coworkers, and she was called crazy, and she was put into
Uh,
a mental institution. Even that was fascinating because as she was experiencing the electric shock therapy, so much more was uncovered through those
We're
sessions.
gonna
It
zap
was,
you.
yeah.
Here comes more information.
Yes, and that's exactly what was going on with her because as she would release the confines of her mind, so much of her mind opened up and she was just given so much information. And then she was lobotomized. And man, when there was no restrictions for her mind, she could go anywhere. And so it
Uh,
was quite fascinating just to learn so much about history and what kind of things she uncovered in that lifetime that was just kept secret for so many years.
Interesting. For the book, it talks about the Sphinx. So does it pick up where Atlantis leaves off by any chance? Or is this like completely separate from Atlantis
No,
and
it's sort of like a prequel in a sense.
like a
It's
continuation?
it's a continuation, but it's also kind of before Atlantis. there's more information about when she crash landed and what that experience was like for her as an extraterrestrial. It's really a much deeper look into what it was like for the extraterrestrials. I I kind of like giving them, well, if they are us, more of a voice, because it's a different aspect of consciousness you don't think about, because you think about like the UFO or the extraterrestrial as other, but it's really someone's memories of being that being. So it's a different way of seeing that lifetime. It's a different perspective. It's like the feelings that she felt as an extraterrestrial, which is a different way. It's a voice that I think they should have.
Correct. And you talking about when she had a past life as a commander on the
Yeah.
spaceship that crashed and
Hmm.
everything. So
Yeah,
there's more
exactly.
information that comes forward about that.
Right. And more information about different time periods in Atlantis. It wasn't when we were working together to uncover the final days of Atlantis, we didn't realize just how long Atlantis spanned. And so there were golden ages as well. I mean,
Yes.
Atlantis lasted a long time. I mean, there were other time periods during Atlantis, which were interesting to piece together, to learn about. And there's so much, but I felt like I was on a journey because it was so fascinating, because I kept, just wondering where they were going to take us today. And just so many fascinating things started coming. And I told you about the three person, I think, a while
Yes, yes,
ago.
that's interesting. That I like how there's a your book has the trident on it with the 3 points, and then you got the person three, and I'm looking at the Amazon comment, and it says, descriptions about the book a little bit, and then a comment, and then it says -3. I was
Yeah.
like, oh, so that's where that comment came from. So I'm
Mm.
assuming you all working with three?
Yeah. And it was so interesting because when we started getting this information, Jen kept saying, "Oh, well, there's somebody or being named three that has information about the Sphinx. There's a being named three." She kept saying that, and I didn't really think anything of it. I just I just didn't. I was like, "Who's this being named three?" Then one of my other clients, towards the end of writing the book, said, "Well, there's a being named three that has information about the Sphinx." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I've heard that before." And I thought that's a really weird coincidence. So as Jen had already left, I was worried that I wasn't going to find a subject, to work with to finish the book. I was kind of scared because she's such a good subject. How am I going to find somebody else that's this good of a subject? And I had this man that came in for a session during, like, earlier a year before, and I just really liked his information. So I asked if we could work together again. He said yes. And at the end of the session, after all this information about the Sphinx came out, he said, "I am three. Three is me." I was like, "Oh my God."
And that was the guy.
Yeah.
So this is a real person, because at first I thought, well,
Yes.
maybe this is a being, like a upper dimensional type of being,
Well, that's,
his
yeah,
higher self.
it was his higher self. It's not, yeah, it's not him, but it was speaking through him, if that makes sense.
Ah, okay. So three
A being named
is
three.
coming through this gentleman.
Yeah.
That's your client.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Gotcha.
It was it's really interesting to be in my position, because so oftentimes I doubt things. I have this healthy degree of skepticism, but things like this, I just, you can't, how can you
Yeah,
explain it?
that's interesting. You hear in one session that an individual or entity called three is going to come through with more information for you. And then this guy comes
Yeah.
through. It's like, yeah, I'm three, I'm here. And you're like, wait a minute.
Yeah. I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is so crazy."
So with that being said, how many sessions you've had with this entity called three?
Oh, I think he was, or the entity was there throughout the whole writing of the book,
Oh, gotcha.
just
Gotcha.
influencing it. I
So,
felt like this was a collective work.
gotcha.
Like it
Now,
didn't.
did three tell you anything like where they're from or who they are or anything
So
like that?
when Jen, yeah, in a sense, it's an extraterrestrial, I guess you would say. When Jen was talking about this three person, she said another name for it was Toth. Some people call it him, it, Toth, but it's not
Oh,
really a he or she. It's kind of an it because it's both, I guess you would say.
uh-huh.
And it has come many times to help humanity to share information just so that humanity would get it together a bit, and that this incarnation of three is here now, but not just in one physical body, in many physical bodies, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, if you look at it from a higher self point of view, a higher self can have what, multiple souls
Right,
fraction off from it. So maybe it's something similar to that.
right.
So plus if
Yeah,
something was to
so
ever
interesting.
happen to that one person, be like, oh, Toth or three is no more.
Right. Right. But it
So
apparently it has come throughout history multiple times. And there's
right.
an incarnation of it again now in multiple bodies, helping.
So did three say why it was so important for this information to come through?
Well, just because it's really important that we understand who we really are now.
Gotcha.
It's really important. I left that quote in there at the end of the book because that's the quote that I hear through multiple people. It's just reworded a little bit differently each time, but it's so important for us to really understand who we are and why we're here. And
Gotcha.
that's who we really are, is we're really this group of beings that have traveled, from planet to planet. And we're here for this experience and to further this experience, this experiment. That's who we
Right.
really are.
Because to keep the game of life going.
Right. Because it's a game. It's like a video game. We're
That's
in this like really high tech, cool video game.
I
And in
know, I
order to
know.
play, you have to forget.
Absolutely. You could pick your characters and everything.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how I look at it. So one day I need to finish up my presentation and have it all out there one day just to say, yeah, life is a video game and you're picking your characters, you're designing everything,
Yeah.
designing your mission. So
We're such powerful creative beings. I
mhm.
mean, we're the designers too. And we've designed this game for ourselves. The best
Yeah.
game we could think about.
Yeah, whether it's good or bad, even the bad stuff, they're like, well, you created it.
Yeah.
Like I remember in one session, the person was asking about, why do we have this money system? Why do we have this hierarchy of money and stuff? And, higher self was like, well, y'all created it. This is what y'all wanted.
Right, exactly.
Y'all wanted an easy way, a form of exchange, and y'all wanted to exchange this, for this energy, for that energy, and y'all came up with this system. Yeah, that's what y'all wanted. It's like, oh,
Right.
okay. It's the simple things that just make sense.
Right. It makes sense. I mean, you need some way to exchange.
So I don't know if you're a big fan of Edgar Casey, but was anything juicy about the Sphinx that came through?
Definitely. There was a lot about the Sphinx that was very juicy. I won't give all of it away,
Come on, give
but
us give us a teaser of it.
I think what was really interesting is just that it was built first before, the civilizations were built or were created basically on this planet as a communication device. And it's
Mm.
And there's nothing you can do to the Sphinx. It's built into this really special stone that's being broadcast out to other planets and other realms and other dimensions so that they could keep track of us.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So I mentioned Edgar Casey. Was anything brought up? Any hidden chambers under the Sphinx? Is
Yeah.
that
Oh my
true?
gosh. Yeah. So many. And different vortexes that you can tap into. But
Ah.
some of the underground tunnels or the underground chambers are closed right now, but will open when the time is right, when we've hit a level of when we have raised our vibration, we will be able to go in the Sphinx and see what's in there and communicate with our ancestors through the Sphinx, because that's what other planets are doing. They're communicating with one another through the Sphinx and keeping tabs on us.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
And there's a
So-
lot of groups underneath the Sphinx, like underneath these tunnels. I guess you call them extraterrestrial groups that are keeping tabs of like on our soil and on the progress that we're
Mhm.
right now during our ascension process.
Gotcha. So is there like a Sphinx on another planet very similar
Yeah.
to ours?
Well, it doesn't look the same because they built the Sphinx to look like the apex predator in the area.
Okay.
So it's got the same type of it's the same type of device. On other planets, it looks like spires. I don't know if you've ever read one of Dolores Cannon's books. Someone was talking about the spires and on their home planet. But anyway, it's interesting because a lot of people talk about these spires, and that's communicating with
Oh, okay.
the
When you
Sphinx.
say spires, like just cylinders,
Yeah,
spiring kind of thing, like wavy lines.
yeah. Mhm.
Gotcha.
On
Yeah, I
other
think that
planets.
was even in part of your book
Yeah.
on
Uh-huh.
on top of the pyramids and stuff. Yeah, interesting. So you mentioned Dolores Cannon. I was going to bring her up. So in one of her books, she said the Sphinx was actually a female. Did you get anything like that?
Well, I did because I talked to the Sphinx for a little, or this person said, you could just channel the Sphinx. And I was like,
Well,
well,
really?
what a good idea. It was interesting. The personality, or what appeared to be the personality of the Sphinx that came through. And that was really fascinating.
So that's pretty cool. So if that person was able to channel the Sphinx, then that means it has its own
Has its own personality.
consciousness, kind of,
Right.
or energy or something.
Right.
So what was that like?
Oh my gosh. This whole thing is very fascinating. It's just like being on a really incredible journey. It was fascinating because I really didn't think you could channel the Sphinx. And at first I was like, huh, but the information that started coming through was profound. And you could feel the presence of something.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So interesting conversations. Was the Sphinx okay with how everything was being played out and how everything was happening?
Well, what was really interesting is it doesn't have
Any thoughts about that?
yeah, any kind of bias whatsoever or any thoughts. It was just content, happy to do its job, basically.
Right.
Mm.
Makes
It was
sense.
really,
I
really
mean,
fascinating.
I guess with it being made out of stone, it just has to go with the flow.
Well, there's so much energy within it that it's built on. And it's got very high advanced technology and it has a personality.
Nice, nice. So you mentioned it, and I wanted to reconfirm your story. You mentioned how in the future we'll understand more about the Sphinx and
Mhm.
that vortexes or tunnels will be open and we'll understand more information about the Sphinx. Well, I had a client that was very similar, but on the opposite end, instead of the Sphinx, it was the pyramids. And she was telling me about the pyramids and that there's more to the pyramids than what we know. And I thought this was cool. She said that there's actually messages, formulas on the other side of the stones inside the pyramid. Like, you think you see one side of the stone, it's flat, there's nothing there. But if you was to take that stone out and turn it around, you actually see writing on it and everything. It's just hidden from us on purpose. So I was like, oh, okay. She's like, yeah. So in the future, when when I get to a certain point, all that information is going to come through. I was like,
that's what they all say. When we get to a certain point, this is for us, like a time capsule. And so
right.
we can know our true history, our true origin.
So that clock is ticking. I'm waiting.
It's ticking. It seems like it's about to happen. It's happening.
So I asked, I was like, is it going to happen in our lifetime? Because I don't know. Because, there's, you went to Egypt. There's so much going on over there, so many rules and regulations. It's like, is that going to happen anytime soon? Because,
well, if you think about it, if there's a huge mass awakening and we all change, then we would all change and it would be different.
Right. So you mentioned Mars. Is Mars connected to the Sphinx in any which way, or is
well,
it
that all the information is in the Sphinx about everything that we've ever done as a history of a group of beings on this planet, any other planet. And so it was interesting as I was gathering information about everything that was coming through, Jen's session with Julie, just interesting information about Mars was coming through, because it seems like there are a lot of people on the planet right now that lived on Mars, that passed on Mars. And a lot of people want to see the start of their civilization again happen in our lifetime. So a lot of people are reincarnated again to see this start again. It seemed like there was a collision in space. That's what I got from two different clients, a collision in space. And what happened was it blanketed the atmosphere. So everything turned cold and they couldn't grow things anymore. And people couldn't survive. And so they sent a signal back to their home planet to try to get rescued. But by the time the help came, a lot of people had died.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
My very first QHHT session with a client, she had a past life on Mars.
Oh, cool.
So, and what was cool about this was that they were at war with Maldek. So they were battling each other with Maldek, and they set off some kind of device and they blew up their planet, and their planet was too close to Mars. So when they blew them up by accident, they ripped out their atmosphere.
Oh, interesting. Well, that's interesting because they blew something up and then it ruined their atmosphere. It's very consistent.
Yep. And it was that energy wave, I guess you could look at it like that. That energy from that planet collided with their planet and took away their atmosphere.
Wow, that's so interesting.
Yeah. Huh. So yeah, she had a body of she described herself looking like a frog. Her skin was like metallic in a way, like a tree frog kind of feel and look to it and everything. It was purple. I was like, oh, that's cool. I was like, yeah, doesn't sound like you're a human being in this one.
Oh my gosh, so interesting.
Yeah, when I heard that one, that was my first session. I was like, ooh, man, that was a good one. I was like, yeah, if I can have more sessions like this, that'd be pretty cool.
Maybe you should call her back and see if you can find out more about Mars.
Come on back. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, it was fascinating stuff. So
that's really cool.
And I think even Dolores Cannon brought up Mars as well. And so there was a scout ship that came to Earth, and when Mars collapsed, they were stuck on Earth and they had no planet to go to. So they were stuck here. Yeah. So what else is going on in this book? What else can you share about this book?
Oh gosh. Towards the end, it just seemed like there was a lot of information about the ascension.
Okay. What's
It
going on
was
with that?
it was interesting because, like I was telling you earlier, that when I look around, all I can see on the TV or from,
The madness.
other people is doom and gloom, but I don't get that. I keep hearing we're right on track. And this comes to people that don't even know about other people's information when it comes to the ascension. I mean, this came through multiple clients,
Mm,
just that there might be some chaos, but we're on the right track, that we're ascending, basically. I kept hearing that over and over and over again
nice.
to where I really have to believe it.
So with the chaos and everything, do you think we kind of need this chaos to help out with karma, help out with some kind of healing or anything like that?
Well, I think it's just like anything when you like tear down an old house, you have to tear it down before you build the new house. I think it's basically like that. It's just getting rid of the old, basically, and that's not always easy. You know?
Like in a way, you got to realize, man, this house is old. It's falling
Yeah,
apart. It's time to
yeah,
go.
exactly.
It has to really get you good instead of saying, no, there's nothing wrong with this house. It's okay.
Exactly, because you could live in that old house until you can't. And basically, I think that's what's happening. Now you just have to tear it down and rebuild it because it's not working anymore.
The pain has to set in.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So the Sphinx is connected to the ascension process.
Right, right. I won't give away too much of it, but
Gotcha.
it's pretty interesting. All the, it's just really fascinating what kind of information um, people that went through like a lobotomy or electric shocks were able to tap into without their minds, being confined to the regular way a mind is confined. It's interesting what you can learn from somebody's experience, somebody that went through those things. Makes you wonder. It's interesting.
Nice. Now, is this book thicker or thinner than your Atlantis book?
It's almost about the same
Really? So
length.
you got a lot of
Mhm.
juicy information.
A lot of juicy information. Mostly about the Sphinx, but also about that lifetime. We really went into detail. And then I tried to find her. I tried to figure out if I could find her, but when I looked through, like records, it's hard to find somebody with such a common name. But I got as many details as I could, which were really confirming, which is
All right.
really
Yeah,
fascinating.
because she had a life in the 70s, right?
Yeah, it's not that long ago.
Mm-mm.
So it was really interesting 'cause as I was getting all this information too, at one point she said, "Oh, Dolores is here." And she's really happy because she's excited to get this information out. She's just been watching us and kind of cheering in the background. And
Yes.
and I was like, "Well, awesome. Can she just like give me this information and that information?" She's like, "Oh no, she can't, she can't interfere.
No, you're
She
on
can
your own.
only guide." But it was really interesting. But it makes sense. She can't interfere. She could only guide.
Well, at least she was giving you some congratulations and some kudos.
Yeah. Yeah. I felt pretty cool.
So, is there anything else you can share about three? Is there anything else? Are, in other words, is three going to come through with some more information, or
I'm
you think,
sure.
or you
I
think
mean,
three is done?
no, I don't think so. I think that there's a huge presence of that being Toth, or whatever you want to call it, that's
Mhm.
on the planet now to help us, during this time. I bet anybody could call upon that presence. It's
Yeah.
such a loving, wise presence. It was interesting because I was wondering who is this being 3 that has information about the Sphinx, you know? Maybe I have to go find this person and
Yeah.
then it shows up.
No, it's coming to you.
Yeah, exactly.
So Thoth and 3 is the same energy or entity.
From what I heard, yes.
Okay. So when you say Thoth, is this the Greek Egyptian god Thoth that we know of?
You know, I think it's incarnated many times, but maybe possibly, yes.
Okay. Gotcha.
But it's
Pretty cool.
actually an extraterrestrial.
What's that?
It's actually an extraterrestrial presence.
Gotcha. But reincarnated as a human during the days of Egypt.
No, apparently he was never really a human, but
Oh,
he
okay.
could shapeshift and looked like a human
Gotcha.
when he had to.
Is that why he
Okay.
had the bird mask and everything?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So I guess is he a bird on his planet?
You know, I don't know, but I have noticed that when extraterrestrials are on their own planet, they don't have a physical body. They have a physical body when they come to Earth. It's
Gotcha.
a different type of body. It's like a light body when they're on their own planet. They don't need bodies. They've developed to a point where they don't really need a 3D physical body.
Right, because they're in higher dimensions.
Right, right. Yeah.
Interesting.
It
No.
is interesting. That's what many extraterrestrials say when they come to Earth, that they only have a body when they're going to be around humans.
Yep, yep. Plus, I think they need something that, since the Earth is so dense in 3D, they kind of need something, to
Definitely.
hold in that energy.
Right. Definitely.
So, well, what else is going on? What else is happening?
Not much. I'm just getting ready to start book 3.
Oh
So
my goodness, what's book 3's about?
I don't know yet. We'll see
We
what
didn't even finish
happens.
book 2 interview.
I've always got to be working on something. Well, I'm going in a month, I'm going to be speaking at the Conscious Life Expo, which I'm really excited about. And I'm going to share a lot of the information about the Atlantis material with some videos, which I think will be really, really cool. So people can see like what it was like when I was uncovering this information and firsthand accounts, of some of
Mhm.
these clients. Really fascinating. And that'll be February 5th.
Yep. And I'll have a link in the description if you're going. And what's the event? Life Conscious Expo?
Conscious Life Expo in LA.
Very popular event.
Very
Well,
exciting.
so if you got the book 3's coming out, what is book 3 about?
I don't know yet.
Oh, okay.
I'm excited to find out.
You're just putting it together.
Mhm. Well, I'm
Gotcha.
not even, yeah, I don't even know where it will lead yet. It'll be
Ooh,
interesting.
I wonder if you're gonna do the pyramids.
Maybe we'll see.
Gotcha. Now, are you still working with Jen for this one, or
Oh, she's in Hawaii and she's decided to do something totally different. So
okay,
she's just,
understandable?
yeah, trying to do sustainable living on Hawaii just to get close to where she feels Lemuria was. And
Oh yeah, she wants to tap into that Lemurian energy.
she is. And I'm excited for her. It's wonderful. She seems to be really enjoying her life over there, which is great. So
Gotcha.
no, I'm using different subjects.
Perfect. Here's a question. We were in one of my sessions with a client. Is the Sphinx, is there 2 of them or 1 of them? Because that was a big question that was being thrown around at one time.
So I got that there are 2. There was a female version that was kind of destroyed, but it was symbolic. It was destroyed with the suppression of the feminine aspect to humanity. And I've heard that it will rise again with the rising of the divine feminine. It's just not going to be whole when it rises, but essentially,
Ah,
symbolically, it'll be found.
that's interesting. That's what my client was saying, that it was buried throughout the eons, earthquakes or something,
Hmm.
and eventually it will be revealed. I was like, what?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's interesting. You had something similar. So another thing that I thought was pretty cool in Dolores Cannon's book about the Sphinx was that it was made after a priestess,
Oh,
ancient priestess.
the face.
Yeah, the face and
Interesting.
everything, and they were part of the cat people, if I ain't mistaken, and that's why it's a lion's body, or
Hmm.
you know, a cat
Interesting.
body. So did
Interesting.
anything like that come through on yours?
I got that it was symbolic when they changed the face from the lion-like face to
Mm-hmm.
a human's face, with the just kind of symbolic of greed and the masculine asserting its power over everything kind
Gotcha.
of thing. Just a lot of symbolism for what happened when that happened.
What else?
Beautiful.
What else you got planned for this new book that's coming out?
Well, I'm gonna see what happens, where it takes me, but I mean, even if I say what I hope that it will become, it might totally change because I don't write these books. It's just all this information comes through my clients and through my subjects, and I don't really have any control over where they go. So what I hope comes out or might be totally different. I would really like to look more into ancient Egypt, but it might not even go that way. So I don't know.
Yeah, it was going to be one of my questions. Is like, what subject have you always wanted to look into more, pursue more?
I think just history in general, really, because there's so much we haven't been told, and I really like uncovering that kind of information, just any information that they want to give me. So I really can't decide what it's going to be about. It's just literally going to be whatever they give me, as much as I would like to, you know, want it to be about certain things.
Did three say that they have more information coming for you?
Yeah.
Okay, and there
But
you
they
go.
said they said they only give me information that humanity is ready for. And there was a lot of uh, confidential information. When I was trying to get this information for the Sphinx book, there were a lot of roadblocks. At one point, they said, "Oh no, this is confidential," and they stopped the session.
So how did you get them to release the information?
Oh my gosh,
You
they
must
would
have sweet talked them or something.
no. I mean, I was like, "What do you mean? This is confidential." What happened was I was just working with a client, and she was going into information about the Sphinx, and all of a sudden her higher self stopped the session and said, "I'm sorry, we have to they didn't even say I'm sorry, actually. It was like, we have to interrupt this session right now because you're getting too close to confidential information.
Really?
Humanity can't know this information yet." And I was like, why? Why can't humanity know? And they said, because people would get too confused. They have to wait a little bit to release that information, that it had to do with certain energy, and and we couldn't know that particular information yet. And I was like, well, what can you share with me that isn't confidential? And it was like just beating around the bush, to try to get that information. But it was so funny the way they just totally stopped the session. And then after they talked to me, they said, okay, we'll just bring her back, and you can continue your session with her. I was like, oh my gosh. I asked her later what she thought, and she didn't remember that part, which was
Oh,
interesting.
that's interesting.
Yeah.
So did they ever reveal what they was confidential?
A little bit, yeah, but not to the point. They said some of it they don't want to release because they don't want it to be intercepted
Mm,
because of everything that's going on right now, that they have to
makes
wait.
sense. Makes
Yeah,
sense a little bit, you know.
yeah.
Was any of it like shocking, or was like by the time they gave you the information, you're like, oh, I already knew that.
Um, you know, well, having your session interrupted was a little shocking, but
It's like they
you know,
played a message for you. We're here to interrupt this broadcast.
yes. Well, I mean, at one point they said they were monitoring me.
Uh-oh, you digging too deep.
Yeah, but it was, it wasn't, I know that they wanted to release the information they were ready for at the
Yeah.
right time. And they said later in the future they'll release that information.
Exciting stuff. I'm very excited for you. I'm looking for it. I will buy the book, and it is on Amazon.
It's
And
on Amazon,
yep,
paperback and Kindle.
I'm looking at it right now. It's $16.95 for paperback and
Mhm,
$8.95 or $9.95, depending if you
mhm.
got credits or not, on
Yeah.
Kindle. Very exciting stuff. Perfect. And I'll have a link in the description as well. So you mentioned ascension. So what else is going on with the ascension stuff? I know we talked about it earlier, and we talked about it briefly because we were talking about things that you're not supposed to be talking about. But if you could just give us a recap of what's going on with the ascension the best way you can without getting into trouble.
Well, I mean, basically, what we're going through right now, that this is what I've been told from higher beings, is that when we came to seed this planet, and I say we because we are the essentially all that is, but when we came to seed this planet, something interfered um, with our seeding
Evolution.
it. And it was the fear virus. And we weren't supposed to have a planet with the fear virus. It was not supposed to be a planet that had that attached to it. So we've spent so long getting to the point where we're ready to release this fear. And this planet, we release this fear, this planet will ultimately raise its consciousness. So we're in the process of doing that right now. And we're raising our frequency and our vibration as well on the planet right now. I mean, most people can think about their lives and see how different they are in so many different ways. And that's what we're doing. We're shedding this layer of fear, because once we do that, our lives are going to take on a totally different meaning without that fear. And that is what I've been hearing is happening now. And it's happening. So while we're being bombarded with fear, the more you can take a step away from fear and don't engage with it, the better. And you can choose which frequency you want to ingest almost. That's what they said. It was like, you decide what kind of frequency you want to vibrate at, basically, and ingest that frequency. And then that'll help you, raise your own frequency.
So in a way, it sounds like this fear that when they were seeding this planet, fear came in and everything. And if your thoughts on this was just my thoughts on it. It seems like here's an opportunity to learn from this and experience this life. But yeah, it has fear, but what can we make and what can we create with this?
Oh, definitely. I mean, that's what it's like when we seed many other planets. I mean, you have to adapt to what it is. And because there's so many variables, that's all part of this experiment. That's what makes it an experiment. It has to be different. Otherwise, it would all be the same. So just the fact that the fear was here was, in a sense, a benefit in a sense, even though it wasn't intended to be that way. That we've learned so much from the fear. So it has a, positive spin to it as well.
Right. Don't let a bad situation go to waste, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Because in my mind, it's like no experience goes to waste,
Exactly. Exactly. And I always wondered, why would people sign up for a negative experience? And they've said it's because you want to keep your energy, you know, always going. You want to keep your energy moving. And some of these, even these horrible negative experiences are better than just being in one place, being static, because there's so much to be gained from a negative experience, and it's never negative.
Was anything talked about in the future? Was there any things in the
Just
future?
that we're ascending.
Yeah.
But future is hard because you
Hmm.
never know. Things can change moment to moment.
Absolutely.
So it's
It's all those
really hard to,
timelines.
yeah, all the timelines. Yeah.
I'm going to have a link in the description for Sarah, for your YouTube channel, your website, your book. Absolutely. So,
Thanks.
and what else you want me to share? Your event that's coming up.
Oh yeah, the Conscious Life
Yeah,
Expo.
so if you want some
That'll be
information
fun.
about that, check it out. And if you're watching this video on the QRE network, the rest of the interview is going to be on Guardians of Magic, and that's where I keep all my information about Atlantis, the Sphinx, ancient Egypt. Anything from our ancient past is over on that YouTube channel. So if you're watching this on the QRE network, click the link below and it'll bring you over to Guardians of Magic, and that's where all the information from our ancient past is. And some other interviews that I've done with you is on there as well. So if you want to see more
Awesome.
videos of Sarah, go check it out. I pretty much have a playlist. I think you're up to 4 videos on there.
Nice.
I know you had the
Mm.
Miami one when you was in Miami.
Oh yeah,
That was a fun
that's
one,
cool.
you know.
Yeah.
So that's when the information was first place and fresh in your
Yes.
mind.
Oh my
And
gosh, that was incredible.
almost like you left class and called me that day.
I did. I know. I couldn't wait to tell you.
Perfect. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about that we did not talk about?
I'm sure it's gonna come to me right after we hang up.
You're like, damn it.
I'm like,
If there is anything else, of course, you know how to get in touch with me, and we'll do this again.
thanks, Jason.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So, well, with that being said, I want everybody to have a good night and a good time.
See you
Bye-bye.
later.